Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Kieran. I help people using a spiritual perspective. I wonder if you guys have ever thought about self-worth and what it means. It's sort of a tricky thing to actually pin down and get a hold of, like some sort of weird crustacean or an eel. It's just very elusive. It's not a concrete sort of thing. We talked about self-esteem, self-worth, and self-love a lot. Usually in spiritual circles, we talk about these three selves, right? These self-love, self-esteem, and self-worth. And for a lot of people who grow up without understanding the concept, it seems like an alien idea to actually sit down and feel self-worth. I mean, how exactly are you supposed to go about feeling self-worth anyway? How do you have more self-esteem? What does it come down to? Because the people who naturally feel that, or were raised in an environment where they sort of were given those feelings, where they were able to receive those feelings from their parents or their guardians or friends, or just growing up in an environment that's positive and helpful and encouraging, right? For those who grow up in those types of places, those environments, they often can't really explain it because it comes natural. So trying to get somebody in a position where they do not feel very good about themselves, where they do not have self-love or self-worth or self-esteem, to get those people to actually understand it and empathize with it and to fully feel it is a very difficult task. Almost as difficult as me trying to do my taxes. I don't even know where to start. So what I have noticed in my own life when it comes to self-worth, and again, there's a big tie-in with self-love, self-esteem as well, but what I've noticed is that self-worth comes from within. It's not something that you can necessarily teach. So that would sort of explain why so much of it is actually very difficult to comprehend from other people's perspectives, or why it is so difficult. Because if it is an internal process, then that means that the kids who grew up with parents or guardians who gave them unconditional love, who helped them in those sort of emotional ways, who were supportive, what's happening is that they were nurturing the already existing innocence within the person. So that natural state was not twisted or made into anything else. It was just nurtured. It was just, watered like a plant. It wasn't ripped from the ground and thrown somewhere else. And then, of course, what happens to so many of us is then we try to grow maybe sideways. And we're not really growing in the best way. We're still alive. We're still plants, right, for the sake of the metaphor. But we're not upright, so to speak. So we have to work to do that ourselves. But for the kids who had those positive influences growing up, it was automatic. So the things that were within us, those feelings of self-worth, were automatically nurtured. So it doesn't make sense to a lot of people to try to explain that because it's not something that they ever actually had to learn, right? Now, when it comes to self-worth, for those of us who basically did not have good upbringings or had childhoods that were less than ideal, right? Then the concept of valuing something within us is going to seem alien because it's already been twisted and corrupted. So self-love, self-esteem, self-worth, right? You can even sort of say that self-love is the ability to receive love. From where? Well, from within yourself. Self-esteem is the ability, almost like confidence, to feel valued in what you have to offer as a human being. And self-worth is almost, in a very similar vein to self-esteem, a way of feeling like you deserve the things that you're actually trying to accomplish, right? So self-esteem is, he has high self-esteem, she has high self-esteem. So they believe in their ability to perform a task, let's say. It could be it could be doing something college related, it could be a job, it could be how they present themselves. Self-love is what happens when we're alone. When there's nobody around us, how do we take care of ourselves? How do we feel the love of ourselves, right? And that might look like, eating right, or caring for ourselves, or giving ourselves a break, or not talking to ourselves like we're pieces of shit. And self-worth, it comes down to these elements of the emphasis that we place on ourselves, that we feel the good or the bad in our relation to it. So an example of that in a real world might be sort of, if you have low self-worth, you allow others to treat you poorly. So you can see how all three of these little branches, they all kind of intersect with each other. In fact, I would find it very hard, if you don't have self-worth, to have self-love. And if you don't have self-love, you don't have self-esteem. They're all just little, they're all different words, and they all sort of say different things. But ultimately, to me, they all kind of just are in the same pot, in the same stew. And they're all potatoes. They might be a potato from Idaho and a potato from Poland and a potato from Russia, but they're all potatoes in the same stew. And they're all doing the same thing, and they all mean the same thing. So the best practical way to get over any three, any of these sort of things that we're talking about, is to realize, of course, that this is an internal process. So what that means is that it is up to nobody but yourself to basically revalue yourself, to give yourself the self-worth. There's nobody else to do that. And the paradoxical truth is that if you want to have more self-worth, you have to stop caring. I always come back to this because it's the only thing that ever helps me. It doesn't mean that it's universally true, but I wouldn't offer anything unless I didn't feel that it helped. But with self-worth, in my specific life, I'm coming from a place where I did not value myself, where I did let other people walk over me. I had a hard time saying no. I wouldn't stand up for myself. I wouldn't take care of myself. And this, again, that's going into more self-love and stuff. But with self-worth, it really had to do with not feeling like I was good enough as a human, right? And so those emotions, those very old emotions, they come up, right? They'll come up from time to time. They come up within so many different people, okay? If you're watching this, probably at some point or another, you've had a feeling where you just don't think that you're good enough, or you don't feel that you're good enough, or that you can do it, or that you feel worth, that you're the humanity that's been given to you. So the good things that you want, you don't feel that you can have them. So self-worth is not an overnight process. It's not something that you just wake up and go, oh shit, I suddenly have self-worth. No, you could go your whole life not having self-worth, technically. You can go many years working on this process and not still be able to discover what it is that you're exactly looking for. And I really do feel that the suffering of that self-worth journey, trying to reclaim that power, has a lot to do with the emphasis that we put on the journey itself. So going after our desires in a self-help sort of way has the same pitfalls and disadvantages of going after any ambition that's outward. So you can make the same mistakes, trying to self-love yourself or have self-worth as you can trying to run a marathon or become employee of the month or become rich and famous, right? You get the same pitfalls and the same sort of adage, which is, the road to hell is paved with good intentions, right? That sort of saying. And the same thing with self-help journey. People do this all the time, including myself. You want to have more self-worth, so you start turning it into a goal and a challenge, and you will almost do whatever it takes to have more self-worth. And then ironically, you end up devaluing other parts of yourself, and you maybe become too selfish or unbalanced or angry or frustrated that the timing of it is just not working out. Practically, what you're looking at for trying to gain more self-worth is not in the actions that you do. It's not in the actions that you do. The actions that you do, it doesn't matter what you do or what you don't do. Ultimately, the things that you do may lead in very good directions, they may lead in very bad directions. You might, end up in a very good position by taking bad actions that hurt others, or you might not. And it doesn't even matter what you think. But self-worth is how you feel about your place as a human. It's how you feel within, not even within your body, but within this existence. How do you value yourself as a human? That's not something that has necessarily a practical action. Sure, there's tons of things you can do to build that up, right? I mean, you can't expect to have, healthy self-worth if you're binge eating chocolate every night, or if you're doing drugs, or if you're escaping all of your problems, or if you're, letting other people walk all over you, or you're, letting others hurt you, or you're hurting yourself. Of course, you can't get self-worth. So yeah, there's, you need to build sort of, not even a discipline, but you need to build something. You need to, there are positive actions you can take that will help you feel better, of course, absolutely. But when it comes to just the pure self-worth of yourself, this is where spirituality shines. This is where the reality of your situation comes into play. Is you are alone. Nobody else is around you. Nobody has nobody has anything, no say to do with you. Nobody has a say in your existence. Nobody can tell you what to do. I mean, the government, the police, your family, your partner, okay, you have elements of things, but they can't really tell you who to be. And they can't tell you what to do. And they can't tell you what your existence means. Nobody can do that. I can't do that. Nobody can do that but you. So you have this divide. And on one side, it's very scary, because it means that it's really just up to you to determine your own worth. On the other hand, it's very empowering, because it's up to you to determine your own worth. So you have the two sides. It's very scary, it's unknown, but it's also very liberating and freeing because it's unknown. So you're the only one that has the ability to determine your own self-worth. So yes, you can take actions that will help you. You're probably a very logical person. You'll know what will help you and what won't. I'm not going to waste time telling you that. But the idea is that if you know that it's completely up to you to determine your own value as a human being, and that nobody else outside of you can actually tell you who to be and what to do and how to behave. Nobody can even tell you to be alive. You don't have to be here. I'm not saying kill yourself, but you could. You could do whatever you want. You could choose to die. You could choose to die 40 years from now. It doesn't have to be tomorrow. But the point is, you can choose how you live your life. You can choose what to be, how to be. And as that essence, your self-worth is now given a new value. It's now given a new determination, or a new goal, or a new path, or a new liberation, right? And again, going back to what I was saying earlier, the effort that we put into the self-help journey often derails the self-help journey, because we're saying to ourselves, well, I'm going to determine my worth based upon how successful my self-help journey is. And that actually gets in the way of your self-worth, because you're allowing spirituality or the awakening process or other gurus or spiritual teachers to, again, give you a sense of worth. But that's not where it comes from. You're not looking to twin flames, to tarot readings, to tarot readers, to concepts like star seeds or soulmates or any other labels. You're not looking to Palladians or your ancestors. You're not looking at your spirit guides. You're not looking at angels. You're not looking at God. You're not looking at source. You're not looking at the universe. You're not looking at film, TV, Hollywood movies, your partner, your parents, your family, your friends, society, the media, others, strangers, Instagram, social media. You're not looking to any of those things. Take those all away. Now take away your gender, your sexuality, your personality, your ego, your clothes, your body, okay, your desires, your goals, your ambitions, okay, what you look like, your disadvantages, your weaknesses, your strengths. Take all of that away, okay, and then what's left? What's left is the freedom to choose, and that's your self-worth. That's what's left, and that's where your soul starts to speak, right? Soul speaks, so to speak. What a confusing sentence. But that's where you start to come into your own. So the self-help journey, because you might read a book or you might read this or that, you start to get this idea that, well, my goal of self-worth, of having self-worth, starts to look like this, and it has to look like this, and it has to be like this, and I should feel like this and think like that, and then I will do these things, and doing these things will make these things better, and my life will start to reflect. But that's not how you get self-worth, because you're just creating another narrative, which ultimately will disappoint you. Self-worth has nothing to do with narratives. And all those things that I just listed out sporadically and chaotically, they're all narratives. Good or bad, whatever, it doesn't matter, but they're narratives. So the narratives won't be able to shape your self-worth. Self-worth is a blank state. And it always was. From the moment you were born, your self-worth was a blank state, as was your whole being. But your soul, or that essence of you that was always there and always will be, that is continuous, and it is growing, and it is expanding, and it always will be, and it always has been. And so that in itself is where you're drawing that self-worth from. You're not drawing it from a human concept, you're drawing your self-worth from a spiritual or internal concept. And that's where you get it from. That's how you start to develop your self-worth. Not necessarily through actions, not necessarily through thinking patterns, not necessarily through others, but through the pure mystery of what is going on inside of you. And what that actually means is dropping the self-help journey, stop caring so much, and just give yourself the space. Just give yourself space to exist. And while that might be uncomfortable, and it might be difficult to see those narratives shift and float within your consciousness, what happens is that sooner or later, the expanse within you will start to become bigger, or conversely, you'll start to realize how big it always was.